call the meeting to order for Public Safety Committee for our May meeting for 2021. Good to see each and every one of you here this evening. Glad to have you. We have several things on the agenda, so we'll move right on into those. First item is the approval of our minutes. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Chairman, I've reviewed and read the minutes of the last meeting on April 26th and found them to be in order and true, and ask for their passage.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gurley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 2 is one I don't think any of you have heard in a long time, have you? It deals with our public. We used to call those the public safety buildings, but we're going to move into a different era, I think, is what we're looking at as far as what we call those now. And that'll come tonight as we go about discussing these, and hopefully we can change the name of those to the public health and safety buildings. And the reason that we are placing that in there is for a specific reason. It's because we are now looking at their usage. When we talk about public safety, a lot of times you think about the police, you think about the fire, but we also have the EMS in there when it deals with our health as well. And then when we're looking at also the funding of these buildings, and we've gone about, I think this past week, looking at many different ways of how to fund what we're wanting to do right here. We think that this right here will help us in this too, because we're seeing a lot of different things that may relate to what we can use these buildings for out there in the communities. And so that's why we're talking about this being the new name for them, the public health and safety buildings for these communities of Rutherford County. So we're going to move on into that, and as we go into this, I think you'll see up here a photograph of those. I don't know if anyone has not seen this photograph of what these buildings will be looking like when we place these within the county. There are going to be 6 of them. Is what we're looking at now. We once, the first motion we made on this, I think was 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, that we talked about 5 of these buildings. But since that time, we have found out that if we're going to do this, we really have a need for 6 for it to work properly within this county. And those buildings will be located in Rockville, Kittrell, Christiana, Las Casas, Walter Hill, and Amable. That's where the 6 are located. And if it looks like I seem to have those memorized where they're located, I think I say them in my sleep at night when I'm thinking about where these will place and the possibility for this county. I appreciated our chairman of our planning commission this morning. We brought 2 of these buildings up this morning in planning commission to prove their locations and to prove the plat for where they will be located at Rockville and Kittrell. And he made the statements there that we are now looking at something within this county that we need to be doing more of. It's where we're planning for the future. And that's what these buildings are all about, the future of Rutherford County and how we serve the citizens of Rutherford County in what we're doing. As we went about looking for the funding of these buildings, I know we talk about that they do have the ambulance service we placed in there, and I mentioned this before the county commission at our last meeting and how they will be used, and that if we had these back during the pandemic, they would have been a great source for serving the people in the rural and the county areas, as well as those on the outskirts of the city. They have been a wonderful place to have had those. They, rather than having to drive all the way into State Farm or driving into the health department, we could actually have set those buildings up for places to make that place right there the center for those areas out there. The contact tracing that we were doing, we could have done that in those buildings for the people out that way. It could also have been the places for the vaccinations to be done. A lot of things we could have done in those buildings. You have within your packet, and if you have questions or comments you want to make, stop me right in the middle of this. But I just want to go over this. You have received these through your SharePoint that I'd like for you to look at, if you could. One of them deals with, I think, the fact sheet that is the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. It's talking about $350 billion going out to the state, local, and territorial areas. If you've had an opportunity to read through that, you'll see there's quite a bit of reading. There's quite a bit of information. Well, that is just a part of it. What they're doing is just about every week in it, Mayor, they send out another packet. Here's one of the latest, and you have a copy of that too there on your SharePoint, that has practically the same information. And when you read through it, you'll find some of the same things within there. And we have spent a lot of time trying to go through this and trying to see where this relates to these buildings that we're trying to do. I was going through it just a while ago, and something just hit me on it. One of the things that they encourage you are services and programs contain to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 is something we should be doing if we're going to plan these buildings. And I think that's one thing that we'll be doing with these 6 buildings. It says to enhance of healthcare capacity, including alternative care facilities and things of that type, or whatever. These have all been brought up. Everything that we're going to look at tonight, everything concerning these buildings and to make our changes. Capital investments in public facilities to meet pandemic operational needs. What we're looking at is the future. If we had had these prior to the pandemic, we had been in a lot better shape. And what we're doing now is planning if this happens once again. And there we go. You also have within your information there on your SharePoint, the Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Funds, Public Health and Safety Buildings, a list of items we think that we could do with these buildings. COVID-19 testing in the day room. These buildings all have a day room in them. And that's where we could use that. The contact tracing could be done there. Quarantine space for first responders. Rather than our first responders going back home and giving it to their family or their community where they are, these buildings have individual rooms in them that we could place some of the first responders there rather than sending them back out. COVID-19 vaccines in the day room, distribution centers for the PPEs, behavioral health care center for area hotline for crisis intervention, overdose prevention and services, outreach to promote access to physical, behavioral health, primary care, and preventive medicine, citizen outreach programs at each location for classes on exercise, nutrition, local community food bank assistance. Put that in there due to the fact that you'll notice on the mezzanine of all these buildings, there's I think 1,600 square feet for a pantry, which will be located in each one of these buildings for that community, which we can also use for other activities and things of that type. So these buildings are going to be quite vital to those communities on the edge of the city of Murfreesboro. It also gives our ambulances an opportunity not only to serve the rural area in that area, it also gives them an opportunity, rather than coming from inside the city to reach the edges of the city, this will also give those the opportunity to go into the city, which there'll be less traffic going in rather than coming out a lot of times. So we've looked at a lot of different things, and we have basically, I think I'll let the mayor say what he wants to say on this, but we have read, I think I like to say we've read the ink off of this thing. And I think that we think that this will work. And I hope you've had an opportunity to read through it too and see what you think tonight too. So, Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, as the chairman mentioned, both the 2 documents that is on your SharePoint, the fact sheet talks about capital investment in public facilities to meet pandemic operational needs. And basically on the other sheet that you have, the frequently asked questions as of May 10th, 2021, says the same thing except it's broader. It talks about support for isolation or quarantine. healthcare settings or other key locations, capital investments in public facilities to meet pandemic operational needs are also eligible, such as physical plant improvements to public hospitals, health clinics, or adaptations to public buildings to implement COVID-19. I've been in touch with Congressman Desjardins' office, talked to Senator Hagerty's office. They've been in touch with the Department of U.S. Treasury. We've talked to the Comptroller's office. I talked to Bishop at Comptroller Mumpower's office. They all, when I described the type of building that we want to put in, and of course at the chairman's, it was his idea to put in the word health. That's made a huge difference in putting it the public health and safety building, because everything is health oriented for COVID-19. And what the Comptroller's office talked about is not taking care of things that happened in the past, but projecting for the future, for the next pandemic, for the next surge, for the next variant of the pandemic. How would Rutherford County be prepared to handle another pandemic in the future? So I think we've described that fairly well. There's, I've talked to the County Services Association, talked with David Connor there. He feels the same way. He reads it the same way that the chairman and I do. Talked to Mike at the County Mayors Association. He reads it the same way, that this would qualify. Every county and every city that's getting this tranche of money is trying to figure out how to spend it, because in the very beginning it just said broadband, water systems, and sewer systems, but we don't have broadband. We would have to negotiate with an ATT or a Verizon or someone like that, Comcast. We don't have a sewer system, and we don't have a water system to pour money into for infrastructure. So we started boring down to see if this would meet the need, and everybody I've talked to feels like that this meets our need for capital improvements. Got a number back from the architect on Friday of last week. He got two estimates from two different companies. One was $1 million apart. Just to give him a rough idea to share with you all, but came in around $4.8 million per location. So at $4.8 million times 6 is where we're at. The first tranche, what they call a tranche at the Treasury, has already been delivered to our trustee downstairs. It's in our bank account. So it's up to us to give the green light to move forward. If this committee sees fit to utilize that money. The money has to be obligated by 2024 and spent by 2026. They may get around to auditing in 2027. We'll be in that building for several years because it's going to take us about 18 months to build. So we're I feel very comfortable that we've researched it and we can defend. You know, it just does not say in these documents Rutherford County can build a public health and safety building. That's the only thing it doesn't say. But I think that it says when it uses the words broad range of services or various uses of funds for the recipients. Here's another one that I took out of, if you, and I mentioned to you the other night at the full commission, is to go and if you wanted to read 151 pages, which I did again this morning. It's I've read it 3 times, making sure, but the interim final rule of how these monies are to be spent by the U.S. Treasury, it says the interim final rule also provides the flexibility for recipients, that being us, to use the payments for fiscal recovery funds for purposes or services that are not identified on these non-exclusive lists, but fall under the terms of the section by response to the COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impact. Sounds pretty clear to me, even though that didn't make a lot of sense, but it does. I would urge the committee to see if, open it up for discussion, Mr. Chairman. And
We will. I sent the mayor a text the other day that I had received, and it come through from the governor of North Carolina. I don't know how many of you saw this or not. It says, breaking news, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper announced that $30 million coming from the American Rescue Plan will go towards repairs to North Williamsburg, Rockingham, and Charlotte raceways. North Williamsburg last hosted a cup race in 1996, and Rockingham last hosted one in 2004 for NASCAR. And I sent that to the mayor. I said, if they can use this on fixing a NASCAR track, surely we can build health stations to give vaccinations and things for the people of Rutherford County for their health. Commissioner Gurley?
Well, as many, especially people here in public safety, know, after 9/11, a lot of money became available through Homeland Security grants. And I saw a lot of that spent, but not necessarily spent wisely. It went into buying a lot of thises and that's that became obsolete after 4 or 5 years. And 2 years down the road, 10 years later, never knew what it was spent for. This is going to be something, I think, that will be around for a while, and we can, if we maintain them in the proper way, they should last for a long time. And I think if we don't take the opportunity to do it now, we probably won't ever come across this kind of opportunity. The only thing that bothers me is the word interim. I just wonder when is the final plan going to come about? But I say that partly in jest, but it seems that, it's kind of the way the federal government operates, but it's an interim final. So I think with all the people who are going to be the watchdogs of this, like the comptroller's office and so on, not having an issue with this, I think we're pretty safe. And I think then we should point out NASCAR tracks in North Carolina once the auditors come here.
That's true. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Phillips?
I've got some wording here that it might meet legal mustards, and I'll just put it out there. For the betterment of the health and public safety of the citizens of Rutherford County, I move that we construct 6 public health and safety buildings on county property located in Rockville, Kittrell, Christiana, and Las Casas, and Walter Hill, and Amoville, all using the same design created by the team of Bart Klein. Funding will be secured from the coronavirus fiscal recovery funds, and it's that's my motion, and I suggest that we send it on to the full county commission in June.
I'll second that.
We have the motion made by Commissioner Phillips and seconded by Commissioner Gurley. Further discussion? Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. I think this is an important time within Rutherford County. I think this is something that's not just for us, but for the future of Rutherford County and a few generations after us, to see this continue and grow and see what it can be and be done. For some of you that may not know, each one of these buildings has a safe room in it that withstands a 250 mile per hour wind. and a F4 tornado, which is capable of holding 200 people. And I noticed that one out there at Rockvale already has 100 houses built around it, so we may have to have a lottery to figure out who goes in that safe room. But I think this is something very important and vital to Rutherford County, and appreciate the support that's come out of this committee. I got in trouble the other night saying that I think this is the best committee that we have in the commission, and some people might want to argue to that point, but I really appreciate you and what you want to do. Any other statements anyone want to make or anything? We'll move on. We'll move to item 3, Public Safety Director Report and Emergency Management. Director Clark.
Chairman, Mayor, Committee. In front of you is our monthly report, and I'll welcome any questions that you may have concerning this report.
Any questions on the report? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Have the motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Gannon. Have the second. Commissioner Sereno. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Continue on, sir.
I have a budget amendment.
Okay, sir.
We're requesting to transfer of 10,000, requesting to decrease 11,000 from supplies and materials and communications. We have experienced some unexpected expenditures. One of the items that we need to purchase is some shelving for COVID-19 supplies and EMS supplies that is located at one of our stations. Also, we're looking at purchasing some lockers for our dispatch center so they can put their personal items, purses, wallets, whatever they need to, and lock them up. And then last but not least, we need to purchase some PAs that will go in the ambulance stations to, right now it's coming off of the radio. This was one of the unexpected items, and utilize that PA so they can hear it across the station in the hallways and then also in the bays.
Taking this money, a lot of it out of gasoline.
Yes, sir.
What's your budget going to look like next year for gasoline?
And that is according to how far we've been blessed that gasoline has been low. We expect it, we're going to meet that budget that's next year.
So it'll be hopefully about the same.
Yes, sir.
I move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve. Commissioner Phillips.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gurley. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
We've been working up to the 9th hour on a couple of items at emergency management, along with our EMS director and our HR director, and we are requesting to place out or post a request for qualifications for our new medical director. Recently, our medical director of 25 plus years has notified us of his retirement. Doing so, we felt that we've never done this before. We needed to put out a request for qualifications to see those physicians that are interested in becoming our new medical director. With the permission of Director Hudgens and myself, and then we also have included Murfreesboro with this in hopes that we can find the same person to coordinate our medical direction, our protocols, our quality assurance, and all of the above. So we're requesting to be able to post for our request for qualifications.
You're requesting to post the qualifications, is that what you're asking for?
We're requesting to send out the posting and request the physicians to send in their qualifications that would best fit Rutherford County.
Okay, and I notice it's got Murfreesboro, Laverne, I assume Smyrna. I hadn't looked that closely, but I assume you're involving all these agencies.
What it is for this particular one, which ones are with the first responder program, and as they add in, they would be added underneath the new medical director.
Do you have a estimated timeline when the current medical director will be retiring, or?
In an email we received, and we've also talked to Dr. Russ Galloway, as soon as we can appoint a new medical director, then he would step aside and retire.
Which really, as soon as possible.
Correct. And that was the 9th hour.
Move to approve this.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Have the second, Commissioner Phillips. Further discussion? All those in favor, approve. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ambulance report.
Good evening. I think we're going to do our budget amendments first, if that's okay with the committee.
Right ahead.
The first page, we have 3. We're requesting to transfer $15,000 from our convalescent paraprofessionals line item into the convalescent part-time payroll. We have 1 vacancy full-time, and we have used more part-time personnel as our convalescent division grows. The second, we received $24,295 from GovDeals for selling old vehicles. We're requesting to appropriate those funds into our health equipment line item, which is $735. And we are also requesting to transfer $117,000 from our vehicles line item into health equipment, $735. We bought 3 new ambulances with the CARES Now money funds. That did not include the power loads and power stretchers, so that $117,000 was to purchase those for the ambulances we purchased through the CARES Now. And I do have one more. It's on the next page.
Okay, you want to go ahead and take care of those 2?
Okay. And after we had done these first ones, Mark Tucker sent me this amendment requesting to transfer $150,000 from our fund balance into the judgments line item 505 to provide additional funds for liability and property claims to be paid to the self-insurance fund.
Okay, you've heard these requests. We'll begin with the first one.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Okay, of the motion, Commissioner P.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Gammon. Call the roll.
Mr. Gorley,
Yes.
Mr. P.,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Then you have, did you get all 3 of them?
thought that was the first two.
First two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have another one, don't you? You had three, didn't you?
I had 3 on one page and then the judgments.
Okay. I think the judgment we haven't done, have we?
No.
We got to do the judgment.
Okay.
Okay.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made for the judgment.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a quick question. That mark sent us across, is that for existing claims or what they anticipate as future claims?
When I asked for the explanation, I printed his email. Ambulance is down to $7,000 in funding in the self-insured fund. With the claims paid this year, it will be used to pay future claims and cover any reserves at year end.
Okay. We have the motion. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Petty,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we got them now. Okay. Mr. Director.
Okay, Denise is not going to be here tonight. She doesn't have anything new to report. However, the exam room that we've got the grant for and have started building on should be completed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're just waiting on the equipment to get here now. Actually, I think some of it will be here tomorrow, so a lot of progress being made on that, and once that's completed, and I expect us to be operational, we're hoping sometime in June, and once that's done, we'll be inviting everybody over to come and look at it. I've had a couple of detectives from the Sheriff's Department swung by, and they're really excited about the opportunities it's going to be for them, where they can actually collect evidence and stuff like that from scenes and stuff that they wouldn't have the opportunity to do anywhere else. So I'll keep everybody updated on that, and Denise will give you a full report next month. I usually start out our report with the number of calls that we do each month, and but I realized I've never give you something to compare it to, and so I called the surrounding counties, but what I've done, I've called the counties that we lose our people to. I called Bedford County, and for the month of April they made 675 calls. Williamson County, who we lose most of our people to, made 1,700 calls. Wilson County made 1,238, and Sumner County just set a record for the history of their ambulance service with 2,600 calls. We did 3,330. So we're doing twice as many calls as the surrounding counties of us. And I just thought those numbers were pretty interesting. We kept our average response time at 6.75. The number of deaths we had for the month were 86. We received $2,150 of state payments on those investigations. The number of autopsies we ordered for the month of April were 25. We paid $49,000 for those. Year to date, we've done 298 autopsies. Now, I'd like for you to look over from last year, we did 212. So as our population grows, these numbers are always going to continue to increase. Year to date, we have paid $584,080. Last year, we paid $397,500. So I thought that was, our numbers are basically doubling compared just over last year. Okay, flipping over to the non-emergency side, They did 525 calls. 50 of those had to be declined. Excuse me, did I go over our collections on the emergency side? I don't believe I did I, Chairman? Okay, let me go over that real quick. I'm sorry, I skipped over that. Going back to the first page, we billed $1,547,656. Total collections were $819,316. Year to date, we've collected $7,416,255. Projected year collections are at $8,899,505. Got a 64% collection rate. Insurance write-offs were $275,840, and other write-offs at $303,743. Okay, now flipping back over to the non-emergency side. They did 525 calls. 50 of them had to be declined. Total billed was $363,125. Collected $115,950. Year to date, the non-emergency side has collected $939,434. Projected yearly collections is at $1,127,321. Got 128% collection rate, and insurance write-offs were at $214,640. And we received a thank you note from a patient, and we also received 6 feedbacks of patient updates on true cause of trauma and some cardiac events that the ambulance service truly made a difference in the outcome of the patient prior to arrival to the hospital. And I thought those were really interesting. I'd encourage you to read over those, and it has some pictures and stuff like that. We had 2 employees, actually 3 counting dispatch, that received the Walmart Sam's Club Award. And the first 2, I'm just going to pronounce the first name, let you figure out how to pronounce the last name. Andrew and Oscar, and the dispatcher was Penny Barrett. And you'll see their pictures on the end of that. And that's my report, sir.
Okay, sir. Any questions on the report? Something he didn't mention there, I think that's pretty important. He mentioned Williamson County having 1,700 calls, Rutherford County having 3,330. We did 3,330 with the same number of units that Williamson County has. And they did 1,700 with the same number of units that we have. So that is something we're doing twice as many calls with that many units. So that's something to say what our people are doing out here in Rutherford County. I just thought that was an interesting number there in comparison. Any other questions anyone might have? Do I have a motion to approve the report?
I so move.
Commissioner Sereno moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gann, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, fire rescue. Evening, Chief.
Good evening. For the month of April, we ran 7 structure fires, 5 vehicle fires, 262 medical calls. We had a total of 62 MVAs, 34 with injuries, 28 without, for a total of 530 calls for the month of April. Next sheet is our run call volume for year to date. 2,218 calls. Next sheet is the countywide, showing all the volunteer departments and what their numbers were. They reported we had a total total county volume of 54 structure fires, 51 brush fires, 28 illegal burns, 33 vehicle fires, 445 MVAs, 7 of those were with extrication, for a total of 2,855 calls. Next is the Codes Department report showing what structures received damage. Next page is our fire investigation report, and the get alarm installations of 14. Fire investigator Josh Sanders did tell me that, called me last night and said they had a fire on Blazer out towards Smyrna, and he did get a confession to that set fire. So they'll be pursuing that. And then the last page is a report on all the illegal burns and the locations those took place. And that concludes my report.
Any questions? Mr. Phillips moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have the second. Commissioner Gurley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
I have one more item. I don't have a budget amendment, but I want to get your permission. We sold a pickup truck last month, and finance will not allow me to have the budget amendment until we receive the money. I'm hoping to receive that before the end of the year. It was $6,600, and if that money comes through, I'd like your permission to carry that on the budget to transfer that money out of a sale of equipment to $790, which is other equipment. Like I said, I don't have it, but I'm just asking for permission. That way, we won't have to come back and get permission because we won't have time. If that's only if the money is received. The money has to be received when the sale of equipment into finance before they'll let me transfer it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to allow fire rescue to take monies received directly to budget.
Okay. Motion made.
You got a question?
Have a second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Radio system. I believe Chris is going to cover that. I received a email from Commissioner Gurley to ask some questions concerning that, and I've got it here tonight, Commissioner, so we're going to cover it.
So recently, Peter Rogers has taken a new position with the state of Tennessee. He will be the director of TACking, and we've lost a lot. However, we do have things in place. Currently, Joey Johnson, which has been working for us part-time, assisting Peter, has stepped up to the plate and adjusting well. Currently, as you can see in your report, that they've completed the installs for the Sheriff's Department and EMS. Also, we're working with the schools. Recently, they deployed the portables to the schools and some base stations. Teachers have not got, our principals have probably a lot more on their mind than working that radio, so it's our hopes. I've talked to PIO Ashley McDonald, and we're going to work on a video to send out, and so in their spare time, if they have any, our principals are busy, and we'll try to get them oriented to those radios. We're still working on the judicial building. We need to still install a base station there and some other items. And I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
you stated Mr. Johnson, was he filling in or has he been appointed to
He
that
was
position?
a part-time employee, and so he's kind of stepped up and then told us, says, hey, I'll help out until we do it, and he's still on a part-time status.
So you're going to post that position?
It's currently posted, yes, sir.
I would just like, number one, I'd like to thank Mr. Rogers for his service to the county. whatever differences he and I had back years ago were resolved some time back. We've worked together for the last couple of years. He had a strong desire to see this system to completion, and as do I. It's a one-time opportunity. However, there is a lot yet to be done. He left me, and I'm sure you, with what needs to be done. Forward that on to the mayor and to our committee chairman. We've talked to Motorola, and there's some opportunities there, and I think the mayor's prepared to address those tonight that we need to try to take advantage of, because this is just the beginning. There's a lot yet to be done, and technology changes. It's going to be changing. It's not a standstill thing. This is step one, and we need to stay on top of it. And I've known Joe Johnson since he was a very young man, and have the utmost respects for his skills. But I firmly believe that moving forward, it will take both someone in-house and a skill set beyond that to get us really moving, because we still have one site that is the total Murfreesboro-Rutherford County system to build yet. That'll start after July 1 and be integrated. So I will ask the mayor to enlighten us on what he does at appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Of course, Commissioner Gurley and I discussed this last week right before Peter left, and of course I've talked with Chris. We had a meeting, I believe, with Alex. He came to see me last week. We have, Motorola has shown us that we have a credit from the purchase of the $17+ million system that we bought with Motorola. So that 400 and some odd, what's the exact number, Chris? Do you have that?
439. I have to look it through my pages.
439, 883 and 60 cents.
Yes, sir. So you have some option tonight of what you may want to look at that to do with that money. Number one, you could take the money and apply it back towards the bond. We bonded at $17-something million to buy this system. It was a guesstimation on the front end about the number of radios to be purchased from the different agencies, and come to find out that we didn't need that many, so that's what's creating the credit. Like I said, you can credit it back to from an accounting standpoint, but Chris has worked up today too, and I handed that out to you. It should be on your desk in front of you. The first is a credit reappropriated with Motorola, which is option 2. Option 1 is to just go back towards the debt, and then credit reappropriated with Motorola, option 3. And we can, in that option is to bring in, Motorola has said that they would bring in what they call a dedicated Motorola system technician who would perform the preventative maintenance and will be the technical leader for radio management system. If we choose to go this way, I believe I've been told that Mr. Bill Terry with the city of Murfreesboro, they are willing to go in with us on the paying for this position. So you'll see in one of the option 2 or 3, we could pay for this person for at least 2 years. And this person would be a Motorola employee but dedicated to Rutherford County full-time. Similar to what Ed has down in risk management, where Cigna placed someone down in his office to help handle more technical questions on our Cigna plan. This person, we wouldn't pay for the benefits, we wouldn't pay for his pension, we wouldn't, all we would do would be using this credit money to pay for the salary while that person is here. Peter's position was posted, as the director just told you, so that person will come in and do other things for EMA, whereas this person, you can use those credit dollars just for someone dedicated for the radios. And there's always maintenance on radios. I mean, people turn them in, they get them burned up in the fire, somebody has to recalibrate them, get them hooked up. I would recommend that we go with either option 2 or 3, as opposed to sending it back to the credit. It'd be probably complicated to try to put that towards, unless you just want to send it back to general fund, but to send it towards the bond, it's already bonded and people have sold the bond, so that would be difficult to do. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman. So I think the committee needs to make a decision on what direction to go. We were going to bring this up under other business, but we had 2 items under other business, but we're here, so might as well talk about it.
Mr. Gurley?
Yeah, I would like to see us have the field service person for at least a couple of years. Since the second site's not going to be built until after July 1, it's not going to be integrated till the latter part of this year. The earliest that acceptance can take place of the 10-site system is somewhere around the first of the year. Then we go into a year of warranty. And then it's that next year that I really worry about. You know, when we just had a simple system, you had a repeater out here, you had a handheld radio, you just programmed it, and it worked on that repeater. Well, this system is so much more like your phone company, your cell phone. When you go to a store, they activate it, or you auto-activate it. It's all done in the back end and everything, but the phone company takes care of all that back end work. Well, you can't just program a radio and put it on this system. It's got to be programmed into the system, into the master computer, into the heart of the system. Certain aspects of it will work, but a lot of it won't unless it's programmed in there. So just programming the radio doesn't necessarily get it. It doesn't tell it where all to go and what all to do. That takes someone with the training. And the nice thing about this, I talked pretty good detail with Motorola because I don't like to spend money on things we don't need. But this is something we really need because we're going to need to keep this system in tip-top shape. I think we probably will need this person, and that's something 2 years down the road we can evaluate. Do we really need this person? Or maybe we have found someone. But I think somewhere along the way we're going to have to relook at pay level for that position, because I can guarantee you Mr. Rogers went into a much higher pay grade when he left Rutherford County and went to the state. And he and I kind of did just the opposite. I worked, he's back where I used to be. And you know, I came here kind of after another career, and he's taking a progression up the ladder, and you can't blame a person for that. And we've got to, not only, I'll say this, we've got to look at all of our public safety pay grades in the coming year. That's just a fact. But maybe, like I said, sometime in this next 2-year period, we'll find someone, we'll increase that pay grade to where we can get someone we're going to always need someone. Motorola's not going to go out here and deploy stuff for a special event or a riot or this type of thing. We're going to need someone in-house who a Rutherford County employee to be able to do those kind of tasks. But when it comes to tweaking the system and making that giant computer work the best it can, they've got a skill set. They've gone to dozens of schools. They've got a skill set that we can't match right now. So I move to approve option 2.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner P., we have the motion and we have the second. Open for discussion, Commissioner P.
I've got about 4 questions, and maybe the mayor can answer this. Is option 2 the option where Murfreesboro City said they would cost share this position?
Chris, you may, I haven't talked to Mr. Terry. Is that?
So I have reached out to Mr. Terry. We have to consider that we have to get Murfreesboro on board as well. I'm wanting to reach out to them. I have preliminary talked to Mr. Terry concerning this matter, and we spoke. He spoke favorable. I can't say that he says, well, this is what we're going to do. Of course, he'll have to go through his counsel as well for this sharing of this field service officer. So it is preliminary, I will tell you. However, we still have that credit. If they chose not to do that, then we still have this credit. I think it's a great opportunity and how I describe it is this individual through Motorola looks at the system at 10,000 feet, where our tech, that Peter's position, looks at it at 5. And so he oversees the systems, he makes sure that everything's working in the background, there's a lot of computer work, all those other kind of things. The system is complex. That's what that position is for. We have to get Murfreesboro on board to see if they're willing to do that share, and if they, for some reason or another, they don't, we still have that credit, and we move forward from there.
So we don't know is the answer to that question.
Correct.
Second question is, how much is this guy's salary?
That
and
is
how many years would our credit cover?
I have a representative from Motorola, Mr. Alex is here, and he can speak on that if you would like for him to come up to the stand on that.
Move to suspend the rules.
Mr. Alex?
Talking to Mr. Farley.
Do what?
I was talking to Mr. Farley.
Oh,
I apologize,
okay.
I missed your question.
I asked how much this person's salary would be and how long our credit would pay for that salary.
Sure, so it's either side is splitting it. So it's $77,000 a year for Rutherford County. That's all that Rutherford County would be responsible for. So the rest of it, the way that it works is there's on-site support. So Nashville Communications is currently your on-site support person. What we do is we decrease theirs by 40 hours a week. So their support costs go down. That is actually a discount which is applied to this FSO tech. And in the...
So if Murfreesboro City opted in, are they paying part of that other?
The other half.
Part? Okay.
The other half.
But you say that's agreed to?
Again, it's kind of one of those, we got to parallel the roads together because, again, it's got to go through his commission as well, but he's opened up a position, he spoke favorably of it to both Chris and I, which is why we want to talk to you tonight about it.
So, having said that, $77,000 a year, and how much is this credit? $439,000, is that right?
Correct.
So, I haven't got my calculator out, but that's a lot more than 2 years.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Now, where would this person be located?
That is up to both Rutherford County and Murfreesboro to decide.
When I say located, I'm talking, is there presence physically going to be in this county?
Yes.
Either in Murfreesboro City or near one of our facilities? Because I don't want to wait half hour or 2 hours for somebody to drive from Nashville or Franklin or wherever it might be if we have a crash.
Yes, sir. So they'd be located anywhere inside of the county at whatever location that you decide, but they will live inside of the county.
We had talked about that before, and I want to use it for instance. When we had the bombing in Nashville, our systems crashed. What could this person have done for us?
So, I'll be political in saying this. So the system itself did not crash. The radio system did not. The AT&T lines that were feeding the system went down from their main trunk in Nashville, redirecting traffic in the wrong direction. Is essentially what happened.
Stick into that line real clear. So I can hear you. I'm not hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So the AT&T lines went down. So right now the police department's connected into the radio system through an AT&T line. That line went down with the bombing because the main trunk that controls all the traffic in the Middle Tennessee area was unable to restore service in and around the area. And this was true for much more than just Middle Tennessee. So that person could not have fixed that because that was a problem in the ISP itself, the physical fiber line. Now, that's come to light, and I believe Murfreesboro is going to put up a microwave shot going from the PD to one of the tower sites, which would give the redundancy so that if that happens again, you would actually traverse the microwave network instead of the fiber network. So, in a nutshell, that person could not have brought AT&T's fiber back up by himself, but he could, if anything had happened to the radio system, he would be the person to respond, along with Nashville Communications and any of the other FSO support techs in the area that would come along as well. There's one in Davidson County and there's one in Williamson County.
Okay, we saw this option when we were looking at this initially, and a person in that position, we were given a cost at that time. Do you recall what that cost was? Is it less than what I'm looking at here?
You're looking at something less than what it was there. This takes into
what it is now, or we're looking at something less now than what you offered us?
Correct, the latter. And that's purely because the way that the maintenance contract was built out, there were on-site support services from a third party. This would be in-house. Therefore, when we reduce the third party, that's constituted in layman's terms as a discount because we don't need as much service from them, and we replace it with a factory tech.
I'd just like to make one comment that when you talk about that fiber, that's third party. That's what happened with the Christmas Day bombing. Smyrna went down. If we hadn't had the interop repeater up there that I put up there in 12 or 13, they would have had no communications. They were out for a month or so. So that's the reason I'm against using fiber for major interconnect anywhere in a public safety system, and that's one of the fallacies of doing it. You pay the price. You don't control it, third party. So I think Mercer's learned the lesson. Smyrna learned the lesson. Hopefully they'll be putting microwave into tacking site at Tiger Hill, and doesn't mean it won't go down, but it's a lot less likely.
That's correct.
All right, other questions?
Is this motion contingent upon Murfreesboro City buying in and us doing $77,000 per year, or is this motion for us paying everything?
think it was from Murfreesboro, wasn't it? Contention on Murfreesboro, is what I was
The
thinking.
motion was to accept option 2. Option 2 includes us only paying half of the fee contingent on Murfreesboro. So if would you like for me to reword that?
As long as we're looking at the 77, not double that. That's
Right.
what I wanted to, that's
Right.
why I was asking what I asked.
It states here 2 years. Obviously, that's half of what's going to be. But if you'd rather I would reword it, I can reword it. And I will withdraw the motion, and the second will withdraw, and I can reword it.
I'm fine with the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's what we were saying. That's what option 2 said. Ready to vote? All right, call the roll.
Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Gorley,
Yes.
Mr. P,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That got us? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Gurley, for bringing that to our attention. All right, Sheriff's Office. Good evening.
How are you? Got one thing before I report. We had a unexpected resignation, retiring, and I'm asking to take her position number, which is, I made a mistake, wording mistake. It's an admin 3, not a supervisor 3. But it's a grade 19, and I want to take that to a deputy clerk that works in warrants and records, which is a grade 16. So I'm actually pushing it down, and I'm adding it to the men or people that work in that front lobby.
Could you say that again? What's your request? What's happening?
To reclassify that position number to a 16 from a 19.
Laura, got someone go into that position?
No, we'll have to hire.
I move to approve.
It would be a lower pay rate.
I move to approve the request.
Motion to approve the request. Have a second? Second, Commissioner P. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
And
You
of course,
have-
the next is my report.
Your
Any
report. Any questions upon the report? Anything within your budget? Has it changed anything we should be seeing?
I think you'll notice some of we have some higher numbers remaining than probably what y'all are used to, and it's explainable just through the COVID number, just the COVID, the pandemic in and of itself, fewer cars. I know in the communications, we were expecting 30 new cars in December that we didn't get. Verizon and AT&T were going up in some pricing on their cards, the internet cards. They did not do that. So that's a number that we were expecting to go up by about 25 to 30%, and it did not do that. But it will. I do know that. They're just giving everybody an opportunity to get ready for it. And hopefully I'll get my 30 cars by, July or so.
Just looking at a particular line item that should, I guess, be a concern for us, especially going into next year's budget, is gasoline. You appear to be okay.
I'm keeping it the same. I'm not asking for any more in gasoline, but I do worry about the price. But we've been through this before the last 4 years I've been here, and we've managed that pretty well.
Did you make any adjustments in your budget for next year?
I'm just scared, I'm keeping it where it was. I've reduced a lot in the jail budget because that's more spot on than my law enforcement side. You know, like the food. I can guess that won't go any more than $22,000, $23,000 a week. It's hard for me to say that about IT and communications and things like that that's in our SO side. So I'm either keep it the same, but if you look at my budget, I did reduce some. I mean, more so on the jail side, though.
Looks like this year you're okay.
I am.
At least it looks like the way
Ms. Nolan is aware of the overtime issue, and she will take care of that when it's due.
you're going to be taking a look for the remainder of this month and next month as it relates to what may happen.
Overtime's my only concern.
Mr. P.?
Just a question, kind of flip this around. You know, we've had a lot fewer prisoners in the last several months, and I know what people don't realize, we've got a lot of fixed overhead. You know, if you got one prisoner or you got 30, you still got the same number of guards. You know, you got utilities got to be paid. Basically, you got a bottom line on costs. However, with the difference in there, and it could be cost avoidance or it could be savings, does anything jump out at you where we've actually lowered our costs to the county?
It's utilities, our water, and that was due to the Siemens project. But you know, you also have to say it may be due to the fact that we have 300 less inmates this month than we had 5 months ago. I believe a lot of it is the Siemens project and what we did with our water system. But it's not apples to, you know, I've got to say it, losing 300 inmates has some impact on it too. I just can't tell you what it is.
Came at an inconvenient time, didn't it?
No, I gave you the best options there. That's got to be the most truthful answer I can give you. It's the Siemens project and it's a reduction in inmates.
I can see
Yeah.
where you wouldn't be able to tell there. But yeah, it could be a mixture of either one, so.
I could go back and look at the actual water
utilities?
consumption.
Anything besides utilities and food jump out at you?
Food will go down.
Which one?
Food.
Well, food in the last 2 years, ever since we bid it out, that's $1 million right there that we've taken off of our budget.
But the sheriff feels like with the courts opening back up, as chairman, within 4 to 6
It'll go
months,
back up.
we'll be back to 900.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I expect it to go back up. So.
And you'll
thank
see an impact on our increase in revenues there from the state too, eventually. I feel good about it.
Sheriff, are we all set for the spring fling out Highway 99 at Rockville? And
Says yes.
he said yes. 3 days out there on that highway. Any other questions on the report? Not to have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion been made to approve. Commissioner Gammon, have a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. All in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you. Pause. Good evening. You got all your power and IT all on?
It's all on. It's not on a generator, so we're happy about that. Very routine report for the month of April, 561 animals in. Our live release rate for our dogs was 92.7%, cats were 94.7%, and overall 92.3% live release rate. Surgery programs still staying busy. As far as folks in the shelter, it seemed like it was down a little bit, which I don't really know why, but we had 2,067 in this month, and we had 1,681 calls and voicemails. Our officers completed 1,753 calls, traveling 11,711 miles. Year to date, our live release rate is 93.2%, very routine as far as the number of calls and the mileage that we've been traveling. If If you look over at our rabies exposure and our bite report, we had 43 bites for the month. One of those animals was sent for testing, did not come back positive. We had 11 other exposures. 2 of those were sent for testing. Those 2 did come back positive, one in the Blackman zone, one in the Buchanan zone. Both of those positives were from skunks that had gotten into fights with individuals' dogs. And then the last page of your report is just the graph, so visually you can see the live release rate versus euthanasia rate and other outcomes. And that's my report, sir.
Okay. The reason I was asking our director if their electricity and everything's on, he was affected by the individual that drove through the Ag Center other Monday out there, and it did affect, they're tied to the Ag Center out there, but a generator did get them up, and it didn't affect anything that you had, or?
We were down for about 4 hours. We were able to use, since we have laptops in the trucks go straight back to the data center versus going through the Ag Center, so we were able to do some things on the trucks. IT was down there very quickly. Building maintenance was down there very quickly. They actually set up we had an extension cord run into one of our trucks that had a printer set up, so it got us to where we could do some things so that we weren't completely shut down. We did have another issue that afternoon once things had been back up and running. A battery backup had went out. It was a generator issue, but IT was down within 30 minutes or so and had us back up again. So a really good job from building maintenance and IT on keeping us operational.
Good. Appreciate your work in that situation right there. Any questions on the report?
Motion to approve the report.
Motion approved. Commissioner P., do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
OSHA? Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for the month of April, you will see our accidents total was 16. For the calendar year, you'll see 65. OSHA log summary total recordables, you'll see 47. Restricted day claims 21. Lost day claims 11. And other recordables at 15. On the next page, you'll see on-the-job injury claims. And again, that's comparing it to the last 2 years. What I will have you keep in mind, you'll see that it's up a little bit compared to last year, but last year the schools in a lot of places were shut down for a period of time for several months there. So you're not really comparing apples to apples if you compare last year to this year. The next thing you see is on-the-job injury incurred dollars. You will see for 2021, the incurred dollars is $261,000 compared to last year at $149, and the year before is $172. And then on the last page, you'll see for how it's broken down, the Board of Ed had 8, County General had 8, and from the County General there was 5 from the Sheriff's Office, 2 from EMS, and 1 from the County Clerk's Office. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions on the report? Motion made to approve. Commissioner Phillips, to have a second.
Second.
Second. Commissioner P. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Recovery Court report. Good evening.
For those that may not know her, this is Lindsay Davis. She is the supervisor over our reentry program under recovery courts and goes into the correctional facilities. If you would like for her to go first, or I can give the report first, she has some requests to apply for some grants.
Okay. You may.
Okay.
Let's see. We are asking permission to apply for 2 different grants. One of them is a federal grant through the Bureau of Justice. It is a Second Chance Act, excuse me, for adult reentry education. It focuses on improving substance use disorder treatment services, and it is a no-match grant to the county. It seeks $900,000 for 36 months. And that one would be in partnership with the Rutherford County Correctional Work Center. And then the second one, this one was a little too late to go on the agenda. I do believe that Ms. Reba Carlton spoke with Commissioner P. I believe that he gave his blessing, so I did want to present that tonight as well. This one is a state grant. It is a 1-year contract grant. I do have copies of that if anyone wants to see that one. It would be between $50,000 and $200,000. This one would be in partnership with the Rutherford County Adult Detention Center. And this one as well would be to improve the evidence-based programming inside of the Rutherford County Adult Detention Center.
It's also a no match.
Correct, yes.
I didn't hear that.
No match, correct, for both of them.
Okay. Any questions on these grants?
I'll second that too. But when they sent me an email, to me it's a no-brainer. It's possible funds that we can use and we didn't have to match them. So I said, please do bring them on.
All right, so we have motions to approve that you go ahead and apply for both these grants. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. And for my monthly report for April, we had 8 new participants, 2 graduates, a total of 128 participants at the end of April. There are about 90 individuals currently waiting to get in, either waiting for a court date or waiting for the district attorney's office to approve them for assessment. And I believe that all of you should have received an invitation, but we are having a graduation tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, and it will be in the jury assembly room at the new Judicial Center. So we welcome you to that and would love to have you. Classes continue to go in our facility. And that's going Monday through Friday, and then individual appointments. We do have, our clinical supervisor has announced that she's retiring, so that job we're getting ready to start interviews for. She's been with our program for 20 years, so it's a great loss to the county. But otherwise, we're continuing business as usual.
Only thing I'd like to mention is I know that there's at least 13 commissioners that have meetings tomorrow night, and maybe more than that, where we've got a joint budget, health and ed, and Board of Education meeting. So it's not that a lot of us wouldn't want to be there. It's a lot of times we've got conflicts. Anyway, I'm proud of your program.
Okay. Thanks for the invitation. I have a motion to approve the report.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner P, second Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Report is approved. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow night. All right. Probation report. Evening.
Hello. For April, our total expenditures for the month was $147,114.26. Total revenue collected by the clerk's office with circuit court and general sessions combined totaled $14,117.56, giving us a total revenue amount of $26,444.56. With the difference of the expenditures for the month of April, that gave a difference of $120,669.70. The total amount of probation fees that were turned over to the clerk's office for the month of April totaled $5,893. Those that failed to enter a payment agreement for the month of April equaled $3,500. So far this fiscal year, we've turned over turned over $105,912.75 to the clerk's office to be collected through payment agreements. And then those that have failed to enter a payment agreement through the clerk's office totaled so far this fiscal year $97,771.75. And that would be my April report.
Any questions on the report?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gurley for approval. Have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gammon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you for your report. Juvenile detention.
Try to rush through this pretty quick so I can catch the second half of my little one's T-ball game, but the operational side of the report should show no significant changes, so I'll skip over to the contract, litter removal contract for interstates and state highways. It's time again to sign that. State's very happy with the way that we are cleaning both of those roads and want to continue that. Nothing's changed in the contract. Nick has taken a look at it. It should stay the same as far as the money's $100 per mile on interstates and then $75 per mile on state highways. And then the total trash we collected out there this month, or the month of April, was county roads. We collected 9,820 pounds of garbage and 917 bags collected out on the state routes and interstates. And that is my report.
Motion to approve his report, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve.
A second.
We have a second. Commissioner Gurley, the mayor has a comment.
Mr. Cole, were you able to pick up the van from Mac? Yes, sir, we were. Okay, and picked up the other trailer? Yes, sir. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Juvenile detention.
Good evening. I also have my April information in front of you. On the front page, I'd just like to note that Fayette County has turned in their $6,300, so we got that check after the report was prepared. And I'll happily answer other questions. One of the things that I do have did not make the agenda, and it did come through on the tablets, and it is an MOU. So I will see if you have questions, and then we can maybe talk about this MOU.
Okay, we'll ask for a motion to approve the report. A motion to approve the report.
So move.
Commissioner Sereno approves the report.
Second.
Mr. Gammon, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Report is approved. Now we have your MOU.
Okay, so this is something new, but very similar to what you've seen in the past. This has gone through the county attorney's office, and they have been working with Williamson County's county attorneys for some time, trying to get the wording just like they wanted it. The need for this MOU has come about in the process of us working through the pandemic and having issues that we've never faced before. There was a moment in time when if we had had a female Rutherford County
youth to come through that would be detained, I didn't know what we were going to do because all of my female employees that were trained to work in housing, except for myself, were quarantined. So I was going to be stuck there forever, and that wasn't going to work. So that I don't have to do that, and nobody else has to work 24 hours straight, reached out to Williamson County because they have, they're close in the event of a similar situation. Rutherford County parents could get there more easily than, say, Shelby County. They have a great reputation. They have professional staff, and this MOU helps us and them in those type situations where, in the event of something very unusual, where we were not able to detain a Rutherford County child for some unusual situation in the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center, they agreed to accept that child and vice versa. Now, it's not just I'll scratch your back, you scratch ours. They're going to charge us $175 a day per child, and we would also charge them. So it's similar to the contracts that you've seen in the past. However, this would not be used unless it was a unusual emergency situation. So all that being said, I'll answer any questions that you have.
This came up last year during the pandemic. We had an actual situation like that. Is that correct?
Did not have the situation, but I was concerned knowing what my staffing situation was with who was quarantined and who was waiting on results, that I had no female staff for the event that we had a female detainee come in, and I didn't know what we were going to do. So that's when we started making all of our phone calls.
Williamson County, did they have a situation?
No, they have contacted us in the past. This would be another example of how they might use us. They had a situation in the past where they had 2 co-defendants, and they're not as large as we are, and it was a pretty serious case, and they wanted to send one of those co-defendants to us, but we had not established any kind of contractual relationship, so we weren't able to do that at that time. So this also would cover that type of situation as well.
You mentioned the cost of what we would pay, $177 per day, is that right?
$175.
$175. And what did they pay per day if we took one of theirs?
It's the same, $175.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Other questions?
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept, Commissioner Gammon.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Phillips. Other discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other business? Is there other business? Mayor?
Chris still here? He left? Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we had put this to the end of the, because he was working with Sonia today to get this completed. And what we're looking for is the request for qualifications on the medical director to get approval here and then send it on to the steering committee, where the steering committee would have an opportunity to look at the qualifications of the medical director, since gosh, Dr. Galloway has been here for 25 years in that position, probably never looked at those qualifications, and things have changed in the last 25 years. So, Sonia, do you have any additional comments on what you and Chris worked on this afternoon? Can we move to suspend the rules, Mr. Chairman? To
suspend the rules.
Allow Sonia to speak.
Good evening. So Chris had formulated an initial request for proposal.
Qualifications.
Request for qualifications, and then I reviewed it, talked to the State Department, there he is, Chris, why don't you come up, this is your gig, Emergency Medical Services. So through the two of us, with coordination with Director Hudgens and also with Mark Fultz from the City of Murfreesboro, had a couple of suggestions, and I think everything has been changed per the specifications for not only those entities, but also to make sure that we were in compliance with the state. So.
My recommendation, Director, is that this committee approve that. We send it on the steering committee and then on to the full commission because things haven't changed. We haven't changed anything in this in 25 years when Mike Nunley probably just appointed Dr. Galloway, you know, and there was no qualification. So this is just going through those steps.
It's been a kind of a difficult process because I don't think we've ever done this before. And so on between HR, EMS director, fire chiefs, such as that, to meet this new medical director, it's definitely been a complicated issue.
Any questions, or do we have that motion?
I'll move that we approve this and send it to steering.
Okay, motion moved to send it on to steering. Have a second, Commissioner Phillips. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we'll send it on in to steering, which will be week after next on a Monday evening. Okay, sir. Any other business we may have? Yes, come forward.
Good evening again. There have been some conversations about turnover and the pay structure of our public safety departments, and Commissioner P. had talked about this in budget and suggested that maybe I bring forth some information to the Public Safety Committee so that you would be aware, and also if you had some ideas of ways to restructure that I could formulate so that the Budget Committee would have that. So I brought that information tonight. One of the things that Mayor Ketron had done had requested a 4% lift to the table. Other commissioners had reached out to me about what would additional lifts to the table look like. So I thought that it would be important for you to know. I went back just to look at the history of the pay structure since I've been here in the last 14 years. And in the last 14 years, we've lifted the table We've lifted the table 4 times in 14 years, which means where a lot of the entities will give a cost of living increase, for lack of a better way to say it, which is similar, to what the mayor's recommending. The county has done that 4 times. And then one time in 2015, we did a major evaluation of every position in the county and looked at that to evaluate. Now, we've done reclassifications of a few positions here and there, but not the entire table. I'm not recommending the entire table this year, but I looked at our public safety departments in particular. So I looked at our fire, our ambulance, our police, and just to see what it would look like. And if, at the request of what would it look like if we lifted the table even more than 4%, I lifted it to 8%. And so then when I lifted it to 8%, I took the salary survey information that we get every year. We request our counterparts to send us their pay tables just to see where we are in line. With the 8% lift, we would still have to reclassify a few of our positions. Our patrol officers, 2 would need to be reclassified, and I have had conversation with Preble, and I'm hoping that she's discussed that with the sheriff. Our detention officers have discussed that with Juvenile Detention, Correctional Work Center, and also Preble concerning the Adult Detention Center. Our firefighters, to get those in line, and to see where that would put us. So if we did a reclassification and we lift the table by 8%, it would put our sheriff's office, a patrol officer too, starting at 45, which of the entities that we compare to, in Director Hudgens' earlier comment, now I did not include Bedford County, but Williamson County, Wilson County, Metro Nashville, those entities that we do lose people to, just look in the city of Murfreesboro, because we lose to the city of Murfreesboro as well. When I compare to those entities, doing the reclassification and putting the sheriff's office people, the patrol officers, to a 45 puts us in line with those. Additionally, with the fire, it puts those in line. The lift to the table, the 8% lift to the table would put a paramedic starting at approximately 50 for a step one, and that would put them in line with what the others start with. So that gets them at that higher rate to really adjust and help to retain and recruit. The firefighters, it would put a firefighter at 40, which is in line with all of the entities except for Metro Nashville. They're the only ones that would pay considerably more for a firefighter.
Anya?
Yes, sir?
You keep saying this would put us in line. Explain how we've always kept our pay scale.
Okay.
You know, these guys, and reiterate it to me again, if you don't mind.
Okay. So prior to my ever coming to the county, I don't know when this was established. It was long before me, and maybe somebody in this room knows when it happened. I was going to say Virgil, but I hated Commissioner Gammon. The policy in our handbook has been that the county would be an average paying employer. We would pay on the 50th percentile, so we would just be average paying. And that's how our pay structure has always been set up, is to pay as an average paying employer, which isn't problematic as long as you continue to do lifts for cost of living and you continue to adjust as the nature of the job changes. Not only, I would venture to say, with the double the amount of calls we make for ambulance, I would venture to say we probably do double the amount of calls for patrol versus Williamson County. Not sure where the fire would stand, but I'm sure we do a lot of fire because we do interstates a lot, and we do a lot of rescue with that. So if we're looking at staying as an average paying employer, right now, meeting that criteria, we are several $1,000s below what the average should be for an entry-level person. And that's where it came into continuing to lift. So like a patrol officer 2 right now starts at $39,900. But at the 8% with the reclassification, they would start over 45, 45.5, 45.6, something like that. Our paramedics start at a 46, but if with the 8% lift, they would go to right at 50. Firefighters are currently at 35 with the reclassification to a pay grade 20 and the 8% lift. It would take them to 40,000, a little over 40,000. Our detention officers currently make 33,000, which, when I looked at the turnover, our turnover in our correctional facilities combined has a pretty high number for turnover. I only looked at the departments that had double digits turnovers from January 1 of 2020 to today, till May, and our departments that had that much turnover were of course, ambulance, juvenile detention, the jail, the sheriff's office, correctional work center. Paul's was right on the cusp, and then fire. So those are our public safety and the one public health department. When we look at how we're going to impact turnover, how we're going to retain people that we continue to spend lots of money to train, to send to the academy. We recoup that if they leave within the first year, but it's just to retain so that we can have some stability for our citizens and also for our other employees. So when I was evaluating, what that looked like, I was trying to say, have we been overly aggressive in my 14 years here, and I would say with four times of lifting the table and one reclassification, we need to kind of continue to do some of those things annually so that we don't end up needing an 8% lift or a 4% lift. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think we need to do something this year. The reason I say that is next year is an election year. And none of us are going to want to raise any taxes or anything next year. Because you have people who, well, if you raise taxes, I'm not going to vote for you. Well, that's okay. If I'm not doing the job I'm supposed to be doing, don't vote for me. But if you're just not voting for me because I raise taxes, then you're not looking at the whole picture. But we've got a lot of people out here who, we're losing people, and we're overworking people. And I may have a little different view on it, having spent 27 years in public safety myself, but if you're telling me that it's the same being in an office, or I worked 15 years in corporate America for Fortune 500 corporations. Yeah, there were some pains and headaches and so on, but I never once had the fear of being run over on the interstate. I never, or shot.
Yeah.
I had friends shot or burn up in an explosion. I lost a coworker in Waverly, Tennessee. Yeah, those are things that never crossed my mind while I was working in corporate America. I never faced any of those situations. Well, people say, well, you chose to do that. Yes, you chose to do that, but at the same time, you expect to get paid to do that. And even with these, what you're talking about, these people aren't getting rich. Look at what the poverty level is as far as, you know, I saw something the other day where if you work 40 hours a week for $15, you make $2,400 or something like that, and a week, not a week, but what was it? Anyway, 15 times 40, $600, I guess, and times 4 would be $2,400 for the month. If you draw unemployment, you got $665. So these people are just doing a little bit better than unemployment. And like I said, if we don't do something, it's got to go through budget, Chairman P. But it's, you know, if we don't do something, we're going to get to a point where we don't have people to make calls, and we're going to come back. We wait 2 years down the road to 2023. We're gonna wind up regretting it.
Hey, first, and then Commissioner Phillips.
Well, I was just going to say that's the reason I asked her to come to our committee. You know, some of y'all had mentioned we were concerned about how many people we're losing and why. And, you know, to me it's significant, and I never knew that we actually had a policy in place that we would be in the middle of the pack purposefully, especially when I see us having problems. Like part of the retention of people is not necessarily the money. It could be in the ambulance service, is these guys are being worked half to death because of the call volume. And what I'm hoping is those new health and safety buildings, if we can man those, that will cut down on the volume. It won't cut down on the volume, but it'll cut down on the average that individuals are having to run. We can get more people on the ground. So I think that'll help alleviate some of those problems. But I think that we as a committee, when I say we, talking about full commission, but public safety, if y'all want to endorse us looking at increases to the pay, say up to 8%, I'd like to see those numbers myself before I commit, yeah, I'm ready to jump on that bandwagon. I want to see how that would affect the cost, because for one, I'm not looking for tax increase this year or any year if I can avoid it, and that's, my intention. But having said that, I still think we need to look at this closely, see what it will cost us, and if we need to go ahead with it. And if we do, I'd like to see a recommendation go to budget one way or the other from this committee, since it is public safety we're mainly looking at.
I wanted to make a comment about the turnover. When we looked at 1,000 people that had left us in the last 14 years, we actually looked at a few more than 1,000. But Lisa Nolan and I were looking at this. We were kind of looking at different scenarios to come up, like, in the event that we were asked, what were some tools that we could use or give you, information on. And when we looked at the approximate 1,000 people, 353 of those people left within the first year. And not all people leave because they're going to another job. Sometimes we ask people to leave, unfortunately. But this would not be people who were retired in that first year. Those 353 were somebody who left for some other reason. It may be we asked them to leave or they left. After that, between years 3 and 5, we lost another 360 people. It started stabling off at about 5 to 7 years. If somebody stayed 5 to 7 years with us, they were likely going to stay. But those first 5 years were the most critical. And so we started looking at how is it we've got to get that front end pay, even though we have benefits and things that are that we can market and that are good benefits, we've got to keep them, because that first 5 years is where we're losing people, and that's where you're spending the money, the training and the retraining and those type things that's detrimental to our group.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes, thank you. That statement even clarified some things for me. A lot of times we can lose a person to go to the private sector. They pick up a salary increase, but they lose a certain amount of benefits because very few private employers provide retirement type of benefits that government supplies. But these people that we're using are going to other governments, and they're retaining their benefits and picking up salary. Last year, we passed a resolution in support of our public safety, specifically our law enforcement officials. And I still look at what's going on around the country, not so much in the state of Tennessee, but around the country, where we, as a country, are not supporting the people that we put in charge of protecting us. And the message that we send out to our public safety officials is that, or we've tried to send out, is that in essence we love you and we support you, and there can be no greater vision of that support than for us to compensate them to where they can make a decent living. Commissioner Gurley said it perfectly. Unemployment right now is almost $32,000 a year. And that's about what we're paying some of our entry-level people. None of that makes any sense to me. And for us to spend the tremendous sums of money, and tune in tomorrow night and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And for us to spend those sums of money without asking really, really tough questions of our Board of Education, and not fund to allow the people who protect us day in and day out a salary where they can make a decent living plus we can also retain them without losing them to surrounding governments. It just doesn't make any sense to this commissioner. And I would support that statement that Commissioner P. said. Let's make the recommendation for the minimum of 8% and forward it on to budget for their consideration. And if that needs to be put in the form of a motion, I will put that in the form of a motion.
You're making that as a motion, sir? We have a motion.
I'll go ahead and second that. And, you know, the main reason I want to see what those numbers are, you know, if it's possible, and I definitely would support it. So that's, of course, why my second.
Okay, we have a second. Commissioner Gammon.
Yeah, I just want to say, without getting into past history, the original pay plan started in '95, and it was 100% in the right direction. But one thing it did do was capitalize on public safety. You know, you didn't have the fire department then, but you had the ambulance service, you had the sheriff's office, correctional work center, some of those things. Where it fell apart was, and it wasn't in your day, was a previous person who decided to bring everybody in one bow. I think Commissioner Gurley alluded to that in the sense that what happened was you did away with the public safety side of it because an HR director made the recommendation that a sergeant's a sergeant and this person's that. There was no longer a difference to a point between some of the levels, you know, of public safety. I mean, dispatchers started making less money. The kicker is would have stuck with the original one. I know there's a number of times couldn't. I'm going to get into all that. But I'm saying if we'd have stuck with the original thing, we always need to stick with it, hurt or high water, they'd already be making this money right now. They'd be making this money right now. And so 100%, I mean, it's great that the commissioners, I've seen such a turn, not anything negative. I just am proud of the people, the commissioners that are acknowledging the love and need of the public safety people. It's not that everybody else not important either. But I mean, there's a number of things you can do. I mean, I think even right now as a benefit, what do we pay a year for longevity?
$25 a year.
We've been paying $25 for 20 years or more, I think.
It was before my time.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It was before 95, because that was when the handbook was written.
With my 38-year service, I made $1,800 at that $25. It ought to at least bump up to whether you divide it or not, bump to 50 or 75 a year. And, you know, maybe it's 50 for non-certified, maybe it's 75 or 50, however you want to figure it out. But that's one place we can help these people at Christmas, for instance, is let them get that longevity pay before Christmas. And that'll make them smile some even right there. They'd love a pay raise. But the kicker with that, we all know how insurance hits us. It's not going to hit the longevity pay on top of that, but I pray we can figure something out in the budget and everything like that, but that's enough said on that. But I just want to see us, there's things we can do even above that if we can't do the other thing.
One of the things I mentioned, and I don't remember how many years ago it was, but it's been several, I suggested, because the concern was that it was the year that we did right before we did the major, not restructure, but reclassification, we looked at every position in the county and said, okay, is this, you know, to our counterparts, is this in line? The year before that, I had mentioned that if we just did a lift to the table every year, just a 1% lift, if we lifted the table every year from 2005, which is, I think, is when some of that change is made to the table that Commissioner Gammon mentioned. If we'd have done that every year, the pay would have been right in line with what I'm suggesting tonight. So very much to your point, had we just done that every year, that 1%, it's a lot easier to swallow a 1% than having to say we need 8% lift. So that's to your point, that's what it would have been.
The mayor has been recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, for decades, people would always say for the last 20, 30 years, if you went to work for Rutherford County, they had excellent benefits. But what we've been seeing in the surveys that I ran, that people talk about that, but it's not what they want. Some of these employees talk about our pension, which is they'll realize how important that pension is.
10 years later.
You know, when they're getting ready to retire, they're going to realize how important that is. But right now, $10,000 difference to go to Brentwood or Franklin, Williamson County, makes a difference to them. And they're looking at, what can I do today with less work? There's less calls, and they're getting paid more money. So year before last, I came to you with a 2.5% bump to lift the table. First, what did you say? First and
That was the first one we had in 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
So with COVID hitting, as we sit in here last March, Mr. Chairman, and we realized that things were changing. We were scared. We didn't know what was happening, and so the school board is recommending. They've already mentioned a 5, but I talked to Mr. Spurlock last week, and they're probably going to come back down to 4. However, our essential workers are just as important. I'm not saying anything derogatory towards education, but our essential workers, they didn't go home. They came to work. They put on the masks, they put on the gowns, they walked into people's houses and had COVID, not knowing what it was going to do to them. They deserve a 4% raise, if not higher, and I'm glad to see this committee thinking about that. If there's some way that we can pull some money out of this COVID-19, I'd like to give them a bonus. I've asked Sonia to look at a $2,000 bonus on top of that. But from EMS's standpoint, what we ran the polls on, everybody's excited about the 2472 shift. And if we can lift them 4% or 8% and give them a bonus, that'll put us right in line with all the others around us, all the other counties that we're competing with. And I think it'll go a long, long way in paying. Don't forget, we're probably the 4th largest county in the state. We have to step up and take care of our people.
One of the other things, too, kind of the double bonus for fire and ambulance is that if you do get to build these stations, which is a vision, because the two main concerns in the mayor's survey was for ambulance was call volume, which we've already heard about, and these stations will absolutely, if we get to build 5 or 6 of those stations, will help with call volume, but then the other was pay. And so, you know, when you look at those things, one of the commissioners asked me what the cost of living is in Rutherford County, you know, if we looked at that, you know, if it was a single person, a single income person having to pay rent, a car payment, you know, you're looking at rent, $800-900 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. A car payment, you know, you're looking at anywhere from $500 to $700 a month, and I'm not talking a fancy car for $500 to $700 a month. I mean just a car. Then you've got gas and food, things that a lot of people don't think about. When we calculated it up, it left no money at the end if they wanted to buy a gift for somebody. It left no money at the end if they were sick and needed to pay a doctor's. I mean, this is what's needed. So,
Mr. Campbell?
Just one more statement before Commissioner Phillips throws his mic at me. It's just the thing is, I remember the predecessor to Ms. Stevenson, and I was there, I witnessed it. We were addressing about 100 deputies at the time. And out in the hallway, this person made the comment that we'll never make what the city of Murfreesboro makes. And I said, you can't go in there and tell these people that. Trust me. That person did. And I think he may not have been professional, but he had paper wads and booze. So that ended the conversation that was going on. That's just not something you tell people. Now, I know we compare it to surrounding counties and stuff, but still locally, you know, you still have to also look at Smyrna, Laverne, you know, Murfreesboro, whatever, when you look at that. And I'm going to agree 100% with anybody that says the retirement plan we have is awesome. I can tell you that. It's a solid retirement plan. The insurance is good. It's even better with Medicare. And so, but I mean, these guys that come on to work, and I know I was on the Gatsby committee at one point, and I'm pretty sure Sonia was there then, One of the things we looked at, we didn't get hit with those things, but you look at the longevity, when is somebody going to be valued? It was 5 to 7 years, and if they're going to be with you that long, they plan on being with you unless for some reason, pay or something, they just got to go. And I know somebody said something, I think maybe Commissioner Phillips had mentioned that, you got people out here in detention, and ambulance service, fire department, sheriff's office, everybody has to work 2. And I know some firemen that are working 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet so their kids can go on vacation, those things. And I talked to some of them before, and they said, I'd love to stay home and watch TV sometimes, but he said, I can't. I want my family to live on a certain level, and so that's what they do. And you can't solve everybody's ills, there's no doubt, but I think we're going 100% in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the Commissioner Gurley mentioned about tax. When I ran into several people move from Chicago, from Vermont, from San Diego, the Laotian family, American family. First they came to visit and they said, well, ask that person, ask this person, how about the property tax and cost of living? So they decide to sell the home over there and move to Rutherford County because they said they will enjoy and happier than they lived there before. So I agree with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, we're going to do a roll call vote on this. So do you need to hear the motion again, or if not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peed?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to
Thank you. Any other business? If not, we're adjourned.